wanted to touch on. Going to get the player time. So this article coming kind of dovetailing off the last one. I'm going to make a note here real quick. Putin, pin, poppin', bubble. Okay, we'll do that. This article says Putin's pin in America's everything bubble. This one was a little more alarming. This is going to start putting in a little more perspective, everything that's going on and the possibility of where we're at. Sorry, man. And I'll try to get to I'll get to the comments here in a little bit, read them, and hope my channel's not buffering. Is it better now over there? Hello, Pete. 8237 from DLive. Everyone also subscribe to me on DLive. That's a great place where I'm trying to do more streaming. So DLive is where it's at. The setting. So this is again called Putin's pin in America's everything bubble. The setting. Last September, the Fed was forced to acknowledge a new systemic problem surfacing in the overnight lending markets. These are the same markets that collapsed the system in 2008, but a slightly different issue. This time, the system literally ran out of cash due to an enormous amount of leverage cheered on by U.S. economic policy. And so began the latest financial bailout. It began with $75 billion in cash injections and moved up to $100 billion at the end of 2019, then $500 billion, and now unlimited. But the problem doesn't seem to be going away. It seems to be getting worse. With the repo market implosion accelerating in the early 2020, the COVID pandemic also began creeping into our lives. And now it's not creeping, it's all about it. By mid-January, the virus had China spiraling into abyss, and with it, the oil market due to a factory shutdowns. We saw an initial drop, and during all this time, we were too still just wrapped up in the ends of the impeachment that the Democrats drug us through, the country through. And when China was starting to have a breakout back in December, when we could have been focused on this. We couldn't be because the whole public and everybody else was all wrapped up in the stupid impeachment trial. Thank you, Nancy Pelosi, you shitbag. By mid-January, the virus had China spiraling into the abyss, and with it, the oil markets due to factory shutdowns. We saw an initial drop of oil price from 60 to 50 during the second half of January. By the end of February, it found a bottom at $45, with small rally into the first week of March on the hopes of an oil production slowdown. The superpowers at this point, let's step back and look at the superpowers. Sorry, that was a heading. At this point, let's step back and look at the global landscape. As the U.S. spent the last 12 years leveraging up, Russia has been the largest buyer of gold and the biggest seller of U.S. treasuries. That's not a good thing when they're selling their treasuries. When they're selling the treasuries are where people go to. It's just a secure setting, basically. It doesn't really have much fluctuation, and it just stays. Since we've had a AAA rating or whatever, and we've had a high credit rating, the treasuries just hold value. And that's kind of the money that we or the ledger sheet, basically, that when company or when countries owe us money or we owe them money, then U.S. Treasury. So when people are selling their treasuries, they're getting out of America's stock, basically. They're getting out of the American dollar. They're getting rid of the American dollar. They're starting to focus elsewhere. So while Russia was strengthening its financial wherewithal, the U.S. had doubled its debt to GDP. The Fed increased its balance sheet by 95% to $4 trillion. The U.S. financial system was literally running out of cash due to over-leveraging. And the nation was succumbing to a state of mass hysteria not seen since 9/11. Enter Putin. On March 6, 2020, OPEC called on Russia to coordinate an oil production slowdown in an effort to stabilize oil prices. All expectations were that a supply reduction would be agreed upon and the price of oil would stabilize. However, Putin had other ideas. This was the opportunity. Putin, the guy who's in Putin or Trump's back pocket, right? The two buddies that get along so well. So Putin now is making a play. This was the opportunity he had been waiting patiently for in a chess match that spanned several White House administrations. He was ready to launch a moosey gambit, willing to sacrifice some assets for a strike at the heart of American strength, the U.S. dollar. The energy markets were always going to be the weapon of choice when the timing was right. Russia and Saudi Arabia can produce oil at around $20 a barrel, while U.S. shale production costs an average of $46 a barrel. And so Saudi Arabia and Russia can live with sub $30 oil for quite some time. Comparatively, the U.S. energy sector will collapse very quickly with sub $30 oil unless banks and hedge funds are willing to lend more dollars. But you can only lend so many dollars. We can only print so many dollars. But America has ran out of dollars. And so when Putin shocked the world on March 6th by denying OPEC a supply reduction and thereby baiting the Saudis into an oil price war, he was sticking a pin in America's decade-long everything bubble. It was a brilliant play at America's weakest moment, perhaps since the Great Depression, perhaps ever. A moment Putin had been waiting for since stepping into the world's second most powerful position. The denouement. America is in an election year, and the powers that be want nothing less than their White House back. They are willing to destroy everything to regain control. Soros and the boys, not ones to let social chaos, opportunity, pass them by, are coordinating economic destruction state by state. And that is what we're seeing right now, and it's very fearful, and we don't know where we're at or what it's going to look like on the other side of this. Our economy grinding to a halt. Our stock market now, even though it's kind of back to normal levels, it's election levels back in 2016 when Trump was elected. It's kind of stabilized because we're saying we're going to get the stimulus package out and we have a plan and all this other stuff. You can expect that stock market still to make some major dives. It is not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination, even remotely. So they are the powers that be over this virus, and I'm not downplaying the virus. We don't know really enough about it yet, but it has definitely been used as a tool to usher us into a new era. We're being ushered into a new era as we speak, and what that looks like on the other end, on the other side, nobody really knows yet. And I know Trump says we're going to come out and it's going to skyrocket. It's going to be best, fantastic, awesome, great, fabulous, best ever, economy in the world. And the market's going to rebound. We don't know that. I'm not trying to stoke fear here. I'm just saying realistically, nobody really knows that. And the signs point to that not necessarily being the case. So we're not even nearly close to out of the woods on this. And now that the states have us on lockdown and are taking independent rights on messing with our constitutional rights, and we haven't seen even the apex of this stem the curve, this curve of this virus, and we truly don't know. People keep saying, well, it's not that bad, and people they're surviving through it. Well, we still don't know the long-lasting ramifications of, even if you don't die from it, but you get it, and you get it pretty bad, what that does to your lungs. There's a lot of articles out there that say it really screws up your lungs afterwards. So it is something that we don't know yet, if we're being honest. And we're in prime time vulnerability right now as a nation from other foreign attacks. Like there's these other articles coming out that are cyber, are we prime target now for a major cyber attack, right? And meanwhile, Pompeo and stuff is still talking strong words with Iran, strong words with China. China's telling all their people it's our fault. These other countries are taking a very aggressive stance towards us. And our mainstream isn't really even talking about that. Our president isn't telling us that because it would cause a lot of fear. The rest of the world isn't over this, and they're longing for the opportunity to be able to attack us and take us down. We have many enemies that would love a chance to destabilize us even more. And I don't necessarily mean that with missiles flying in and going into a complete hot war. But right now we are at a point where there could be a lot of soft wars or Cold War tactics, warm war maybe is a better way to put it, and we could be hit with stuff. And I am expecting that to happen. I hope I'm totally wrong, but I'm expecting some other things to hit us. And then I'm also curious why they are prepping us for staying at home. I know the virus is a good cover story, and I know there's a lot of benefits to big government and to the authoritarians and the one world globalists and these people that want to see us fall. There's a lot of benefit to the panic of this fear to just get us in home and get our economy skidding to a halt. But there's also, could there be more reasons? Are we not fully being told everything about this virus? I don't think we are, because our governments don't tell us the truth. But also, do they know maybe something else is coming and they're trying to get us, kind of sheltered in place because something else bad is about ready to happen? I'm really hoping that isn't the case, but I have some suspicions that it might be. Anyways, America is in an election year, and the powers that be want nothing less than their White House back. They're willing to destroy everything. The state-by-state control, taking us down. The lockdown was initiated in a big 3 cities that had always been strongholds for the globalists: Los Angeles, New York, Chicago. But this election year was beginning to look like the minority voters were shifting to Trump, a populist who had the best minority employment and business ownership numbers in America's history. Think about that. He had the best minority employment and business ownership numbers in American history. We were booming, man. We were it was good. If Trump were to be the first Republican to win the minority vote since the New Deal, it would solidify the populist movement for the next century. And that scares the hell out of the cabal, the deep state, right? These George Soros, these hardcore globalists that want to take away sovereignty from America. Now, one thing that has happened from this is that people have actually realized the importance of borders and sovereignty and taking control over their own country through this. And so it almost looks like it's working against the globalists. But what I see happening is, even though everyone is isolating right now, when this passes and they have the cure or they have the vaccine and they all of a sudden all is well until the next time it rolls out, or they have something to roll out, they're going to use this as an example of why we should all be more connected, and we should all have more transparency, and we should all be more concerned about the global environment and not our individual nationalistic, populistic mindsets. That's how I see them changing this. Now, I could be wrong, but I see right now it seems like it's helping the nationalist populist movements, right, of where it's helping us focus on our countries. But when this is all said and done, it's going to be a perfect narrative to usher in this global ID or this global governance or this global awareness where we need to all be more interconnected, because we obviously are so interconnected. There's 160 countries worldwide out of 185 or 90 countries that have this problem, and that we all need to work together. That's where I see this kind of heading. And so the virus and the financial collapse present a perfect moment, not only for Putin, but for Soros and his brand of traitors. America doesn't stand a chance America doesn't stand a chance, and those of us not hypnotized by the hysteria are forced to soberly watch it burn. Now, I don't want to say we don't have a chance to come out of this. I don't know what President Trump's grand ultimate plan is. But what I'm saying is, it's a time to be soberly aware that what is happening right now is historically unprecedented, and it's going to leave us with